Hare Krishna, Haribo. Welcome to Radha Kalchanji Dham on this Tuesday morning. We are now, if you're listening online, Haribo. Welcome to Radha Kalchanji Dham. We're on the 9th canto for our daily Bhagavatam class. 9th canto, chapter 19. We'll start through verses 13 through 20. That is our range. And then we'll do verse 20 is our focus verse today. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivara Dhari Jaya Girivara Dhari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivara Dhari Jaya Girivara Dhari Yashodhana Dana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodhana Dana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vana Chari Yamuna Tira Vana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Kalachanji Radha Kalachanji Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Shri Radhe Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Haribo. Okay. We'll start with offering our prayers to Bhagavatam. Before that, we'll offer prayers to Vyasadeva, Saraswati Devi, and all our predecessors. Narayanam namaskrityam naram cheva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamadhirayet nashta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtuki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya I pray to all the devotees that may say something that is uplifting the consciousness of the collective, and it is in line with our acharyas. So today we are on Canto 9, Chapter 19, verses 13 through 20. Canto 9, Chapter 19, verses 13 through 20. And our focus verse will be 20. So for some context before we begin reading, we are on the story of King Yayati, who is a king, and the story actually begins even earlier with his wife and another girl, and they get into a little bit of a conflict, and Devyani, who is the wife of King Yati, this girl named Sharmishta, they have a conversation, they have a challenge, and long story short, Devyani, being the daughter of Shukracharya, who is the guru of the demons, eventually, out of the fear of his curse, Devyani convinces that she wants to marry, obviously, King Yayati, and she convinces Shukracharya to bring Sharmishta as a maidservant because she wants revenge on their previous conflict. And so King Yati brings, so the king, who is Sharmishta's father, he agrees, and so eventually King Yati and Devyani get married, and Sharmishta becomes their maidservant, and many things happen in due course, but eventually Shukracharya is against, he warns King Yati that make sure you don't have any children with Sharmishta, and as the story goes, he eventually does, and Shukracharya gets upset, and he curses King Yayati, and King Yati eventually, he has to beg his children in the exchange for his youthhood, because the curse was that if you will lose your youth and you'll become an old man now and you'll become infertile. And so he goes back and he says, if you can trade your youth with one of your sons, youth and age and fertility, then you can get out of this curse. And so for his own selfish lusty desire, he asks his sons, and eventually most of his sons say no for various reasons, but finally his youngest son with Sharmishta, named, I believe it was Puru? Was it Puru? I don't know. One of the sons agreed to doing this trade of youth. And so then King Yati enjoys this material world, enjoys Grihastha life for thousands of, well, I guess you can call it Grihastha, maybe Grihamedi. He enjoys that for 1,000 years. And finally, now we're getting to this chapter, or this particular chapter, where chapter 19, where King Yati, after 1,000 years of enjoyment of the material world, with lusty relationships and all kinds of material endeavors, he is now disgusted with himself. He is realizing that this material world actually has no happiness to offer, and it's like inevitable that at some point you become frustrated, but the hope is that you keep getting more and more, and then one day you'll be happy. But through his 1,000 years of endeavors, he has come to the conclusion that actually there's no hope in that, getting the chewed after the chewed. So now in this particular chapter, he's sharing this realization with his wife Devyani through the means of a story that he has created. It's of a he-goat, and the he-goat is him, and the she-goat is her, and he describes the story and how, I saved you, and we met, and then the she-goat and the he-goat, they met together, and eventually they came to so many things happened, and they got married, and then the she-goat had to get mercy of a brahmana to get back his youth because he got cursed, and etc., etc. Same story of Yayati, and eventually he explains that actually in this story, I'm the he-goat, you're the she-goat, and we've been going in circles in terms of life. So finally, chapter 13. We can have somebody read the translation. Text 13.
A person who is lusty cannot satisfy his mind, even if he has enough of everything in this world, including rice, barley, and other food grains, gold, animals, and women. Nothing can satisfy him.
I think that was first. I'll just make some key points as we go, because I don't think we're going through the purports. But I thought that was really interesting. It's very, very upfront. Like person who has lusty and has an uncontrolled mind, cannot be happy even if they get all the rice, barley, food grains, all kinds of foods to satisfy the belly, quote unquote. Gold, wealth, any kind of wealth, animals, women, the opposite sex. Nothing can satisfy him. And Prabhupada in this purport is mentioning that in this material world, the goal for every materialist, so which is everybody who's doing fruitive activity, meaning working for some goal, money, fame, glory, their main principle that they follow is that to improve their economic condition. And you can actually just look at the world around us, and it's very clear if you doing a bit of an analysis, if you ask why people do what they do, it's usually, why do I want to send my kid to a wonderful college? Why do I want to get a really good promotion? Why do I want to buy a nicer house? It's always to improve the economic condition. And so it's rooted in the goal for happiness, but their methodology is that if I get more material things, that will satisfy that qualm that's in the heart. So, and Prabhupada is very specifically saying that the reality is that nothing in this material world can satisfy the soul, as mentioned in the verse, and that these lusty desires, or he calls it heart disease, can only be given up through Krishna consciousness. So nothing else. Please, next one.
As supplying butter to a fire does not diminish the fire, but instead increases it more and more, the endeavor to stop lusty desires by continual enjoyment can never be successful. In fact, one must voluntarily cease from material desires.
Yeah. The key points on this was, does anybody know where else Krishna or somebody in our scriptures uses this analogy of the fire? Lust being like fire. Third chapter, yes. 3.39 specifically, where Krishna is describing this tendency, this lust to be like fire. It's never ending. And everybody that is in the material world, their hope is that the peace or the dissatisfaction I feel at this current moment can be satisfied by if I just fulfill that desire. If I continue fulfilling it, I want a nice house, I got the house. Then it'll be the end of my desires. But then once you get it, you're like, okay, what's next? And then, okay, once you become a millionaire, now I want to be a billionaire. So this fulfilling of the desires is like putting butter in a fire. And with never ending, with no success, because when has fire ever gone out? By putting butter in it, right? That's why if you look at our fire crew, firefighters, they don't use butter they use water. And so clearly there's something needs to be done. And the other point I thought that was really interesting in this purport that Prabhupada mentioned was that the person must voluntarily give up material desires through sacrifice, austerity, which is called yajna, tapa, because by fulfilling it, it will never go away. So at some point, you have to come to the conclusion that it's actually by some kind of renunciation of fulfilling these desires again. And Prabhupada keeps mentioning sense gratification, controlling sense gratification. By voluntarily giving up these material desires is how we can actually begin to appreciate what is really good for us. Next translation.
When a man is non-envious and does not desire ill fortune for anyone, he is equipoised. For such a person, all directions appear happy.
Wow. So I have a question in this one. So I feel like envy is brought up pretty often in whether it's in Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam. Why is envy such an inhibitor in our being happy? Why envy specifically? What is the deal with that is making it so difficult for us to become spiritual? That's what it's saying. That's what Krishna says in many of the chapters, the 6 gates of hell. Anybody have an idea? Sorry, Prabhu. Can you speak in the mic?
No, what's the question?
The question is, why is envy, specifically envy, why it's mentioned so many times in our scriptures that it is an inhibitor from spiritual life and it is a challenge. So why is it that envy specifically stops us from becoming more spiritual and
Krishna
more
says
happy?
in Bhagavad Gita, that's the root of our fall down in this material world. Ichha dvesha, desire to enjoy independently, separately from Krishna, and envy to the Supreme Lord. So that is manifested to the through the envy to the other living entities or other beings.
Okay. And if you were able to make it even more simpler, because Krishna is saying something very profound, when you have something and you don't appreciate it, and when you look across from the grass is on the other, the grass is always greener on the other side, you can never be content with what you have, because if you have envy, you look across and you see this person has something that I don't have, and this person must be happier. So therefore, I must get what they have. And so when does that end? I mean, there's always going to be, in the material sense, somebody will have something more than you have, whether it's beauty, fame, money. I mean, besides Krishna, who has all these qualities in full, everybody has varying amounts of these opulences, money, fame, wealth. So envy is like the constant factor inside that, because we will always be in society, we always live amongst people, and when we see people that have more than us, if there is some dissatisfaction in our heart with what we have, then there will always be a push, an impetus to get more, because this person has more than me and they must be more happy, so therefore I must get what they have. So envy doesn't let us rest. That is called an uncontrolled mind. So it feeds the fire of material desires. It just continues thinking that this person has more. Okay, but now I'm this level, now I think that person has more. And so therefore you just keep going, and it's an endless process. Thank you. Next translation, 16.
For those who are too attached to material enjoyment, sense gratification is very difficult to give up. Even when one is an invalid because of old age, one cannot give up such desires for sense gratification. Therefore, one who actually desires happiness must give up such unsatisfied desires, which are the cause of all tribulations.
So even if one is invalid because of old age, and sense gratification is so powerful, this desire to get some kind of joy or rooted happiness that is rooted in getting material things, even if one is old in this desire for sex and other materialistic pleasures, even if one becomes old and invalid, this desire doesn't go away. So it seems that just the passing of time or a health condition, doesn't stop these desires. So clearly there must be some other way. And so time and age, the passing of time, are not a solution to the relentless hankering. And then Prabhupada in the purport expands that the only way is advancement in Krishna consciousness. It's the only way. And I thought it was very interesting. I kind of took from it that he said advancement in Krishna consciousness. And it's almost juxtaposing this idea that time spent versus advancement. So in Krishna consciousness, oftentimes we coincide or we correlate a lot of time spent being Krishna conscious versus advancing in Krishna consciousness to be the same thing. One can spend a lot of time being a part of an organization, a movement, but if they've not made the attempt to advance in Krishna consciousness, they're not actually finding the solution or tapping into what Krishna is really trying to offer. So there is this tends to happen where seniority or many years spent being part of a tradition, ISKCON or any tradition, it is not enough just being part of a society. You actually have to take the endeavor to advance. This one is out of battery. So just bringing up this idea that even if we spend a lot of time being part of a community or an organization like ISKCON, that doesn't necessarily mean you have advanced in Krishna consciousness. It is not enough. You actually have to follow the process that is being laid out by Prabhupada and Acharyas and Krishna in the Gita and Sukadeva Goswami in the Bhagavatam. And through that, you can advance in the Krishna consciousness. And we can actually discuss more what does it mean to advance. But yeah. I can read the next one, so until we get the mic. This is verse 17. One should not allow oneself to sit on the same seat, even with one's own mother, sister, or daughter. For the senses are so strong that even though one is very advanced in knowledge, he may be attracted by sex. And so for me, what I took from this that I thought was interesting was in this one. So if you notice, we're going through all these verses, and the premise is that lust is uncontrollable, and it is, as a jiva, you're trying to find some kind of peace and happiness. And what is our usual method of finding solutions? So first we tried, hey, what if we just fulfill the desire? The desire is there. What if I keep fulfilling it? Maybe that'll stop it. And Yayati and Prabhupada are clearly saying, no, that's not going to work because it's like fire. And then we move forward and we talk about envy, how envy is a big factor, that if I have something, but I'll always see someone else's objects and material wealth, and I'll want to hanker more. And then we go, and he say, even, what if I just let it sit? What if I just time pass by? I'm right now young, and I have motor passion a lot, and maybe that'll stop me, because when you get less hot-blooded when you're young, maybe the desires will go down. But Krishna's saying, or Yayati is saying that, no, even time and age will not stop. If you just let time go by or get older, that is not sufficient to stop lust or this desire for hankering for material desires in the uncontrolled mind. And then finally, we're at this one, verse 17, where it's saying that even if we advance in knowledge, if we have a lot of knowledge, even that is not going to stop our challenge of material desires. So Krishna is basically X'd out all the things we might think of, if I just renounced, or if I just had more knowledge, or if I just fulfill the desires, then it'll go down, or if I let it sit. So these are all our solutions, and King Yayati one by one is crossing them out. Yes, please, verse 18.
I have spent a full 1,000 years enjoying sense gratification, yet my desire to enjoy such pleasure increases daily.
Okay. We might ask King Yati, what makes you the authority? And he says, I've spent 1,000 years in this process of enjoying sense gratification, yet my desire to enjoy such pleasures increases daily. I've been doing this for 1,000 years. You cannot replace experience. And we might question theoretically, but he's actually gone through the process, and he's saying that there's no joy. So if you're smart, you will just hear me. If not, then you will try it, and you'll come to the same conclusion, hopefully. Haribol. Verse 19.
Therefore, I shall now give up all these desires and meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, free from the dualities of mental concoction and free from false prestige. I shall wander in the forest with the animals.
So now King Yati, coming at the end of his life, is coming to the conclusion that now I should give all these up and meditate upon the Supreme Lord, free from dualities and free from false prestige. I shall wander in the forest. And Prabhupada makes the points that the only way to give up lusty desires is by going to the forest. And Vrindavan being the best of all the forests, ideally. But he also makes the very powerful point that, however, if one is still agitated by lusty desires, one should not live in Vrindavan, for they will only commit grievous offenses. This is the point he's tapping on is called false renunciation, or markat vairagya. This idea that, these material desires are very painful and challenging, and they make it very difficult, and so therefore I'm going to leave everything, and I'm going to go to Vrindavan, and I'm going to sit, and I'm going to chant, and there will be the most wonderful spiritual progress I'll be making, and then I'll be advancing. But actually, Prabhupada is saying that if you're still agitated by lusty desires, your solution is not that I will give everything up and I'll go somewhere where there is a spiritual environment and I'll just renounce all my actions. And this is actually one of the points that Krishna brings up when he's speaking to Arjuna. Arjuna says, better than leaving, fighting all these family members of mine for this kingdom, isn't it better if I just renounce everything and go to the forest and chant and be spiritual and learn? And Krishna says, even if you go to the forest, Arjuna, your nature is of a Kshatriya. You cannot sit there and look and perceive injustice happening and be like, no, I'm going to sit here and meditate. This is all Maya. That's not your nature. That's not who you are. Intrinsically, you're a Kshatriya, and by nature, you have to engage in that. And that is actually your dharma. And even he goes a step further. in the 18th chapter when Arjuna asks Krishna, okay, you've said all these things. Finally, what does it mean to be a renunciant? What does it mean to be renounced? And Krishna, in his usual fashion, he describes, okay, intelligent people say this, some people say that, the scriptures say this. And then he gives his own statement, and he says that a real renunciate is not somebody who has renounced the object itself, but it is somebody that renounces the ownership of the object. So sannyasi, we hear the term sannyasi. Sannyasi is someone who has given up material action, the world and the action in this world, for Krishna. Everything is for Krishna. But Arjuna's question is it better to be sannyas, or what does that mean? What does renunciation really look like? Because I see sannyasis and they seem to renounce everything. Is that the path? But Krishna in the end is saying that actually being a renunciant or being renounced doesn't necessarily mean you give everything up. You're not a sannyasi. You have to give up the attraction or the ownership of the thing. And that is renunciation. So that's important for us because a lot of us are grihastas, a lot of us live in the material world. And so we question, okay, what does it mean to be renounced? But Krishna is saying that it's not by giving up, because that becomes oftentimes it's called false renunciation. It becomes, I'm giving up something. Krishna describes in like 3.6, I believe, he's saying that if one gives up material objects, but they still meditate on the material object, they're the biggest pretender. And I remember hearing a class by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu describing how Sanskrit, in terms of linguistics, he's describing that, in English we have a lot of words, like the word stupid or idiot is a mid-tier word, but if you say you're demoniac or you're devastatingly something, the point being that is a very strong word. That word is a lot stronger. And so in the Bhagavad Gita, the word mithyachari, which Krishna uses to describe somebody that is pretending to be renounced while they're thinking about Krishna, thinking about the material objects and the sense objects and lust and sex and different things, that person is the biggest pretender, mithyachari. And in the next verse he says, it is better to be in the world, be a fruitive activist, do some work, do it for Krishna. That is better than renouncing everything. So that is something to be aware of, that even as devotees, we don't want to give things up artificially thinking that, that is renunciation. Renunciation is eventually coming to the conclusion that I'm not the owner, everything is Krishna's, and I'm the instrument. Okay. Finally, we'll get to our focus verse for today. Oh yeah, I have no internet. Sorry. We're on the focus verse now, so we'll actually read this one together. My hotspot turned off. Give me 30 seconds. Okay. Drishtam shrutam asadbhudva nanudhyayen na sandishet samsmritim chatma snasham cha tatra vidvansa atmadrig. Drishtam shrutam asadbhadva nanudhyayan na sandishet samsmritim chatma nasham cha tatra vidvansa atmadrik. Anybody? Drishtam shrutam asadbhudva nanudhyayan na sandishet samsmritim chatma nasham cha tatra vidvansa atmadrik. Drishtam shrutam asadbhudva nanudhyayan na sandishet samsmritim chatma nasham cha tatra vidvansa atmadrik. Drishtam shrutam asadbhudva. Samsmritim chatmanasham cha. Satra vidvansa atmadrik. Well, now we'll go to the word to word. We'll do it together. Drishtam, the material enjoyment we experience in our present life. Shrutam, material enjoyment as promised to the fruitive workers for future happiness, either in this life or the next, in the heavenly planets, and so on. Asat, all temporary and bad. Budva, knowing. Na, not. Anudhyayet, one should even think of. Na, nor. Sandhiset, should actually enjoy. Samsmritim, prolongation of material existence. Cha, and. Atmanasham, forgetfulness of one's own constitutional position. Cha, as well as. Tatra, in such a subject matter. Vidvan, one who is completely aware. Saha, such a person. Atmadrik, a self-realized soul. One translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One who knows that material happiness, whether good or bad in this life or in the next, on this planet or on the heavenly planets, is temporary and useless, and that an intelligent person should not try to enjoy or even think of such things, is the knower of the self. Such a self-realized person knows quite well that material happiness is the very cause of continued material existence and forgetfulness of one's own constitutional position. Purport: the living entity is a spiritual soul, and the material body is his encagement. This is the beginning of spiritual understanding. Dehino asmin yatha dehe, kaumaram yovanam jara, tata dehantara praptir, dhiras tatra namuyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. The real mission of human life is to get free from the engagement to this material body. Therefore, Krishna descends to teach the conditioned soul about spiritual realization and how to become free from material bondage. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. The words dharmasya glani means pollution of one's existence. Our existence is now polluted, and it must be purified. Sattvam shuddhyet. The human life is meant for this purification, not for thinking of happiness in terms of the external body, which is the cause of material bondage. Therefore, in this verse, Maharaj Yayati advises that whatever material happiness we see and whatever is promised for enjoyment is all merely flickering and temporary. Everything we see, all advertisements included. Abrahma bhuvanal loka punar avartino arjuna. Even if one is promoted to Brahma Loka, if one is not freed from material bondage, one must return to the planet Earth and continue in this miserable condition of material existence. Even if you go to Brahma Loka, the planet of Brahma, bhutva praliyate. One should always keep this understanding in mind so as not to be allured by any kind of sense enjoyment. In this life or in the next, one who is fully aware of this truth is self-realized, sa'at madrik. But aside from him, everyone who suffers in the cycle of birth and death, everyone suffers in the cycle of birth and death. Mrityu samsara vartmani. This understanding is one of true intelligence, and everything is contrary to this, but a cause of unhappiness. Everything contrary to this is but a cause of unhappiness. Krishna bhakta nishkama ateiva shanta. Only a Krishna conscious person who knows the aim and object of life is peaceful. All others, whether karmis, jnanis, or yogis, are restless and cannot enjoy real peace. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai. We'll read the translation one more time. One who knows that material happiness, whether good or bad, in this life or in the next, on this planet or in the heavenly planets, is temporary and useless, and that an intelligent person should not try to enjoy or even think of such things, is the knower of the self. Such a self-realized person knows quite well that material happiness is the very cause of continued material existence and forgetfulness of one's own constitutional position. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Prajarane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarane. So the trend that I noticed in these verses is that the foundational thing that King Yayati is telling us is that material desires are the root cause. This is what is causing our suffering, and the soul keeps looking for it in different ways. A person is looking for, how can I stop these desires, or how can I the pain it causes me by having uncontrolled desires, because either I fulfill it, or if I don't, then it just causes much pain. Prabhupada uses the word heart disease. It is a disease on our heart. And King Yayati, through his 1,000 years of experience of having unlimited sense pleasure with his wives, with his kingdom and children, and having all the wealth in the world, he's coming to the conclusion that this material world doesn't have it. It is not by if I continue to fulfill it again and again, finally it took him 1,000 years. This is in Treta Yuga. I had to search up what yuga this was, and it was actually Treta Yuga. So second yuga. He's coming to the conclusion that after thousands of years of ruling and having all kinds of joy, his story started out a little watery, like he had some challenges through and with his father-in-law, Shukracharya, and then eventually things settled down, and now he became a king that has wealth, prosperity, good children, good wife. And so now he's settled. Now he has achieved the American dream that we are promised. He's received it. And now, after 1,000 years of enjoying this American dream again and again and again, now he's like, I have everything. I have everything that you think that the material world tells you, that if you just had wealth, you might have a house, but you don't have enough wealth. Or you might have a lot of wealth, you just don't have a good family. Like, he has everything that we would call the ending of our suffering. And he's realizing after 1,000 years that actually in this material world the desires are endless. It is not that by fulfilling it or by getting older or letting time by or renouncing or getting more knowledge that it is that we will lose it. So my question is, why are our material desires so persistent? Is there something wrong with us? Why are these material desires so difficult to get rid of? This is the whole 7 verses we read, or 8 verses, and that is what King Yati is saying, that there's no stopping these material desires. They just keep repopulating every time I fulfill them. So why are they so persistent? Is there something wrong with us? Anybody want to share? Not Gokulananda Prabhu. He has all the answers. Yes, please. You have the mic. Please speak in the mic. Please, so people can hear.
Like in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it talks about the inverted tree, which the root cause is the desire. Everything starts with the desire. In this material world, everything is linked with the desire.
The root cause is the desire, and in the 17th chapter, Krishna is describing the up. I think it might have been the 15th chapter, but the vision of the tree, that we're in an upside down tree in this material world, and the roots of that material tree is our material desires, and therefore we try to get all the mind, the sense objects, we try to get everything we can, and the material desires are what is causing the suffering, because we're in an inverted position. But where are these desires coming from? What are these desires? Are they just something that pops up into a heart? Like, where do they come from? We wanted to enjoy separately of Krishna. That's a philosophical answer. But we wanted a practical answer. So in the third chapter, verse 37, Prabhupada describes that this lust that is causing so much suffering in our lives, this material desire that you're trying to fulfill through material endeavors, this lust is simply the desire of the souls. And your point is very right, actually. It's the same thing pretty much, where the soul's root desire is that it wants a loving relationship with Krishna. That's the root. So whenever we hear the word own constitutional position, or your transcendental nature, your Nitya Krishna Das, what we're describing is that is our eternal dharma, Sanatan Dharma or Bhagavad Dharma. That is that the soul wants to serve and love Krishna. That is its eternal desire, and that's what it finds joy in. The difference now is that this lust is a perverted for. So if you wanted to open, you can go to chapter 337 of Bhagavad Gita. In the purport, Prabhupada is describing that lust is the perverted version or reflection of the soul's eternal desire to have a loving relationship with Krishna. The soul's eternal desire is to be a loving servant, and this shows up in the form of material desires. So what we have to really understand is why we keep being reminded that you're not this body, you're the soul, your eternal nature is to serve Krishna. We might hear it so many times that sometimes it's like it becomes mechanical, like, oh yeah, we're not this body, our servant, we have to love Krishna. But it's very important to understand that every living entity, every living person has a dharma. And that dharma just means, you can say it's your nature, it's your position, it's your position. But in the end, it's really what it's telling us is that what is the way which, if you can live with the purpose that is your nature, then you can be happy. In its root, right? Krishna's position is he's the enjoyer. But this Krishna's, if there was nobody to serve him, would there be enjoyment? No. And and it's hard to understand because in the material frame of reference, to be a servant is bad. Because we're trying to be Krishna, right? That was the point. We're envious of Krishna. And so we're trying to reach that position of Krishna. But it's like, if you asked like somebody who has if we're talking about Varnas, or if somebody has a nature of just, they're satisfied with what they get, they're not so ambitious and they don't want to strive so hard for money and run businesses and operations. And then you ask that person, hey, for the rest of your life, the only way you'll be happy is if you run a business empire. And you will have many businesses under you and you'll earn millions of dollars. That's the only way which you can be happy. Will that person be happy? They're by nature, it causes them a lot of stress to manage people, and this is a lot of pain. They would just be satisfied just doing some work, and that in that work they find fulfillment. So we are trying to impose a reality on somebody that doesn't want that. So that is this position of the soul, is that the happiness of the soul can only come if it serves Krishna, because only Krishna is the full enjoyer, and through serving Krishna can you fulfill that desire of the spirit. A material thing cannot fulfill the desire of the spirit. The soul is a spirit soul. Just like if you look at ghosts, what is a ghost? A ghost is simply somebody a soul that has a subtle body but doesn't have a material body. But the only thing is that the ghost now still wants to enjoy. That desire to enjoy is gone, and they've given up the facility, which is the body. The ghost doesn't have a physical body, so now they're looking to enjoy at all times, and so they will try to use physical bodies. It's like, imagine you have the desire to enjoy, you have a burger sitting in front of you at all times, but you don't have the means to pick it up and grab it and eat it. So that's our position is not so dissimilar in that we have the material body, we're a soul, and the real happiness is that if we were to have a loving relationship with Krishna and have a loving conjugal back and forth with the Lord, Supreme Lord, that through that is how the soul becomes satisfied and becomes happy. Savai pungsam paro dharma yato bhaktir adhok saje. Yato bhaktir. The supreme dharma of a soul is to have to lovingly serve adhok saje, Krishna, another name for Krishna. So lust is simply that symptom that is showing up for that unfulfilled need that is deeply in the heart. And so that's why you see the whole world. You can take many examples. Does anybody have any examples of people that, in the scriptures or in the real world, that they have everything? You think they have everything, but yet they still are seeking after more and more and more.
Hiranyakashipu, Ravana.
Ravana, Hiranyakashipu. Both wonderful examples of, they have everything. They have everything. They have all the wealth in the world, which is what we are told, that if you had $1 million, I promise you, you'd be happy. If you had a big house, you'd be happy. If you keep getting a good salary, you'll be happy. This is what we're told. But then we look at examples like Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, Duryodhana, modern day examples, Bill Gates and all these billionaires. They have everything, but they seem to be seeking more. So there must be something missing. And so it's easy for sometimes us to say that, oh, it doesn't matter, because when you don't have it, it's like, oh, I'm only not happy because I don't have it. But if I had it, things would be different. You wouldn't be saying this on the Vyasasana, Prabhu, if you had it. But we can see with our eyes. Prabhupada describes that an intelligent person can see through other people's example or just hearing other people's story, that all these people, Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Duryodhana, they have everything. They have everything. And yet, what they don't have is the thing that bugs them the most. So if you take the example of Duryodhana, he is the king. He's the son of a king. He has all the wealth in the world. He has 100 loving brothers and a sister, and he has the whole kingdom, and he's protected by the greatest army in the world that actually care about him. He has everything. But his happiness, he has so much envy in his heart for the Pandavas that their joy is the cause of his suffering. Can you imagine? He has everything, but somebody else's joy is causing him to be suffering. So that means his happiness is based on something exterior, and that means he will never be happy. Because you can't control what somebody has, and which he tried to do, right? That was his whole story. The whole Mahabharata is, the Pandavas seem to be pretty happy people. They have everything, they're qualified. People love them. They have Krishna on their team. And they seem to be prosperous. So how can I stop them from being prosperous? Is always trying to control somebody else because envy is so deep and rich in his heart. And so he will never be happy. And we can take the same example of Ravana. He has everything. He has all the queens. He's captured all kinds of queens from gods and demigods and all kinds of rishis. And he has the most beautiful wife in the world. Even Shivji felt attraction towards Mandodari. That's how beautiful she was. And so he has everything, all the wealth in the world. He's the king of the demons. He's conquered the world. 3 worlds he owns. Even then, just the fact that he can't have Sita and she won't willingly accept him, it just can't sit with him. He's just restless. He's just suffering. This is the deep level of envy we have. And so these are really good examples of people that have everything. And materialism is essentially the goal that if I have more material things, then that will cause me to be happy. And so, thank you. Those desires that King Yayati is talking about, even as devotees, oftentimes we're in the same boat as everybody else. That if I just had more material objects, or a nice situation, or a bigger house, then I will achieve that elusive happiness. And Prabhupada is very adamantly, and King Yati and Krishna, and the emphasis is on that. At the end of the day, the goal is to be happy. But we didn't say renounce, right? That was one of the key points. Doesn't mean you renounce. Okay, Abhay Charan Prabhu has said that material things don't bring happiness, so we should throw them to the side. No, that becomes false because we're not conquering the thing. The things are not the problem. It's the mentality. It's the mentality that I want to enjoy material things. That is what's our kama, krodha, lobha. These are the things that are forcing us to keep seeking in spiritual direction to solve these hankering of the desires. And so, at the end of the day, I just realized we're out of time, so I'm going to wrap up very quickly here. This point of, I thought I would just go over this really quickly, is that even as Vaishnavas, we can fall into this trap of impersonalism. So impersonalism means that by renunciation alone, that I may advance in Krishna consciousness. But this is very dangerous because we already heard Krishna's opinion on this. He said, if you renounce something, but you still have the desire to enjoy, then that is called you're a pretender. You're being a pretender. So better to use everything. So that's why bhakti is the most, the topmost path, because it understands that the soul's nature is to be active. It wants to do something. It wants to serve. If I put you in a room and closed it and took everything you have, you'd be bored to death in an hour. So what to speak of if I sent you for eternity in light and just chill for 1,000 years or 100,000 years? You'd be bored out of your mind. The soul's nature is to be active, because Krishna is active and we take after Krishna. And so as Vaishnavas, we have to be very careful about renouncing things for the sake of renunciation. That alone will not bring us Krishna prema. And so the idea is that when we renounce things that can be used in Krishna's service, that is called Markat Vairagya or Falgu Vairagya, which essentially just means if I have $100 and I say money is Maya, but this $100 could have been used to serve the Kalachanji, or could have been used to serve a Vaishnava or something, then we're artificially renouncing because for the name of renunciation. And that's not what Krishna wants. And we fall into that trap very easily, because by giving up things constantly, even in the name of humility, we'll give up things, give up seva, because I'm not qualified. And so it is a very careful thing we have to guard against, is that we are not impersonalists. We're not somebody that, the goal is not to give up things. If you give up things but you don't reattach yourself to something better, then you'll just fall back down. That's why our process is you renounce sense gratification, but you have to attach yourself to Krishna. You have to attach yourself to the loving service of Krishna through how? The holy name, through Sankirtan, which is Guna, Rupa, Nama, Leela, to the pastimes, the name, the holy names, especially the holy name in this age. This is the only way which we can actually attach ourselves to Krishna. And through that we can fulfill this inconceivable desire that keeps expanding in our heart. And that is the method for this age. I had to cut it short really quickly because I was going over time. So Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Sorry if I said anything that was not in line with our acharyas or that didn't sit well. Haribol. Any questions, concerns, comments?
While we were talking about renunciation and still having desires, it is pretending. I have a question about chanting. While we are chanting, it is dangerous to have thinking about something else and having desires, but the mind still does. So is it also pretending?
Is it pretending that while I'm chanting, the mind is disturbing me, but I'm continuing to chant? So the mind, the nature of the mind, it is going to wander. That is just a truth. I mean, you can just take an example. If I focus on my phone for 3 seconds, then my mind's already somewhere else. It's going to think of what I need to do today. It's going to be restless. And especially in this age, in this Kali Yuga, and especially in the society that we're growing up in, we have no idea actually how to train the mind. I mean, at any point did anybody's elementary school or middle school talk about controlling the mind? Was that even a conversation that anybody ever had? No, right? We have no idea how to control the mind. Yet it is the cause of our inability to focus, right? So in japa, we're trying to focus on the holy name, but the mind is running. It's actually the opposite. It's not that you're being a pretender. This is your battlefield that you're facing with the mind at this point in time. Because when you're working out, right? When you work out, it's not easy, right? If somebody's worked out or ran before, when you start working out, it's very difficult, right? Your body's tired, you can't lift, your body's sore and you're aching and you can't lift so much. And so the mind, we have left it to be uncontrolled, especially in this modern day. You know, you see an advertisement, material desires. It's very uncontrolled. There's no question of, oh, I shouldn't get this because this is not conducive for my life. Like, why does everybody buy a big home? They get a big mortgage and they pay for it for the rest of their life, but they have a nice home. But it's uncontrolled desire, right? It's I want to have a desire. Now, a Vaishnava is different. They might use it for Krishna service to host programs and host devotees. So that's a good thing. But they're repurposing it. So back to our question of when we're chanting, it's not that we're a pretender. This is our time to control the mind. We're learning, we're building that practice of controlling the mind. And that can only happen See, when you're chanting, the only thing you're doing at that point in time is you're saying the holy name again and again. During our normal day, the mind is uncontrolled. You don't even know what you're doing. You're working on this. You have to do this. The kids have to go to school. You have to pick them up. Something is happening constantly. But when you're chanting, hopefully in the morning, is when you're doing one single activity. How many times do we find ourselves in our day doing one thing for a prolonged period? Very rare. How long? I mean, if you read for maybe an hour, that's a prolonged period. If you chant for an hour consistently, but most of it's like, okay, this task, and then you do this task, and then you do this task, and then you watch this, and you next episode, and you watch the next show, and then you watch this. It's constant movement. The mind is enjoying it so much because he doesn't want to sit still. And so when we're chanting, that is when the time is, you're actually aware of this. You're sitting and you're focusing, you're chanting, you realize my mind just went here. And the hope is that as you're chanting, you'll become aware of this mind transferring, going away, and you bring it back. You bring it back. And that is the muscle you're building. The mind is going to move. You're chanting. Keshamar describes this, that to think that when I'm chanting and the mind will not go is not realistic. The mind will go. So if I'm chanting and I see my mind wander, okay, homework, or oh, I wonder who's cooking prasadam today, or you have to bring it back. So this is the gym, the mental gym that you're doing. And that's just the external part of it. Hopefully the goal is you're singing with prayer and you're chanting with prayer and you're developing some love for Krishna as that process goes, and that's the only way the mind will eventually actually stay. But at least for the sake of building that muscle and focusing on Krishna's name and prayer, the goal is that you're building that muscle again and again and again. So it's not the quite opposite of pretending. You're actually fighting. This is your battlefield that you're having with the mind. Because otherwise, throughout my day, at least for me, speaking for myself, my mind runs wild and I follow it. It wants to go there, I go there. It sees this, it goes there.
Thank you for the wonderful class. I was just thinking about King Yati. Like, he enjoyed for 1,000 years. It appears to be such a huge span.
Yeah.
Right. But considering the fact that he lived towards the end of Treta Yuga, I believe, so where the lifespan was 10,000 years.
Right.
Like in Satya Yuga it was 100,000, then Treta Yuga 10,000, then 1,000, and now 100. So 1,000 years of 10,000 is 10%.
Yeah.
So I would say he was
10
so
years.
fortunate, and he was lucky enough to develop that realization.
Yeah.
Within 10 years, if it had to be compared to today's lifespan. So 100 years is 10% is 10
Yeah.
years. Within 10 years, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
And you gave wonderful answer to her. If, with your kind permission, if I
Please
may
share, please.
like Arjuna asked the same question, right? Chanchalam himana Krishna pramati palavadridam. It is, mind is, due to its flickering, restless, obstinate nature, it's forcibly driving me. I have so many celestial weapons in my quiver, and I can change Vayureva. I can change the direction of the wind, but I cannot control the mind. Now, who is saying this? Someone who rejected the proposal of Urvashi, the heavenly damsel. She wanted to enjoy. Now, he has total control over his mind, and he's the one telling Krishna, I do not have control. Then who are we? So then the next verse, Krishna says, Abhyasena kunte vairagana. Krishna admitted, yes, asamshayam, undoubtedly what you're saying is correct, but abhyasena kunte, and vairagana. By practice and detachment, one can, and that's what, as you answered, that's the practice we are doing. That's the process. Manatrayatiti mantra. We are trying to, as and when it is trying to go due to its flickering nature, go away, pull it back. That's the gym, as you said, we're doing. That's the exercise of the mind. But thank you for the wonderful class. There were so many points, and I'm sure you had many more, but because of the restriction of time.
Hare Krishna. I know we're running over. Can I say something too?
I think the discussion time goes till 8:40 is the cutoff.
But it really was a wonderful class, and we'd love to hear more and more from you. But I was thinking about this idea of renunciation and tapasya and false renunciation, so I just wanted to share some thoughts on that.
Please.
So as we noted, as we heard in your class, to just give in to lusty desires and to be dragged here and there by the mind is bad. It's sinful. But it's also sinful to falsely renounce things, to act like we're more advanced than we are, because that's also a subtle form of lust, right? We're looking for prestige. And then I was thinking about how Krishna is not impressed at all by renunciation. He's only impressed by sincerity. So I was thinking of that pastime from, I believe it's the Madhya Lila in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where there's this Brahmin he lives a very austere life. He doesn't eat cooked foods. He only drinks milk. And it says he's never committed any sin. And he's heard about these kirtans, so he goes to Srivas and asks to be let in. And Srivas says, okay, I'll tell you where the kirtan is tonight. You can come. And the Brahmin hides. What's his name? Shuklambar Brahmachari. So anyway, so the kirtan starts, and but Mahaprabhu, he doesn't find any ecstasy, and he says, there's someone here that's not supposed to be here. And Srivas reveals, well, I did invite this one Brahmin, but he's never sinned in his life, and he's so renounced. He only drinks milk. Right? And Mahaprabhu was so angry, and he says these really strong verses, but he calls him a non-devotee. And he says, no one can attain me simply by drinking milk. And he says, even if you're born in a Chandala family, if you're degraded, but you take shelter of me, then you're my devotees. And I just wanted to read this one text that he says, tell me, what kind of austerities did Gajendra, the monkeys, and the cowherds perform to attain me? Even the demons perform austerities, but what is the result? Unless they take shelter of me, they cannot be delivered. So hopefully we follow the 4 regulative principles, we put that tapasya in us, but it's really the sincerity that will endear us to Krishna, and then we'll develop that higher taste to become more and more renounced. But just to renounce so that we can be the most austere Brahmin in Navadvip is not helping us or bringing us closer to Krishna.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I said wrong. I didn't know what you were going to narrate further. So it's a milk drinking brahmachari, different than Shuklambar brahmachari.
Yeah, even if we look at our initiation vows, there's 4 do nots. Right? Do not do this, do not do sex, gambling, meat eating, intoxication. Those are the do nots. But there's only one do. You could have said, read minimum 1 page of my books every day is one of your vows. He's only giving us one do, which is 60 rounds minimum. Minimum rounds of 16. So that is our, the holy name is the only way we can, I would say, this is me speculating a little bit, but the first 4, if we just follow those 4, then it's impersonalism. But if we do that, the last do, with sincerity, with prayer, with affection, with attention, then we can finally not only do renunciation, but we actually build love for Krishna. And so that is thank you for sharing. That was beautiful. Hare Krishna. Haribol. We'll wrap it up, and we'll have everybody's favorite part, Prashadam, by Gopal Prabhu. Jai. Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Shri Prabhupada.